our mission here is to really democratize AI, to get more companies leveraging it, realizing that it's not something to be afraid of, and that if you have a product, whether you want to launch a new AI product or you have an AI product that you want to go to market with, that we have 3 different workshops that we're offering for free, but that basically we will help you if you're an AI product that you need to launch and want to go to market, we'll help you kind of lay out your high-level go-to-market strategy. If you're a company that wants to incorporate AI into your business, then we can help you kind of think through what does that actually look like. We can do some real proof of concepts where you can come out of that saying, okay, yeah, we know we can actually do this idea. So an example is one that we're working with right now, which is, we won't get into the detail, but they're basically being able to take recorded conversations and score them against a bunch of rules. So, for example, if you were a lawyer and you wanted to interview one of your customers, you could say, okay, here's the recording. How well did I do? And then give us feedback. So we go through and we come up with like the actual proofs of concept that we prove out that can you actually do this with AI or not? And then if you do, then we can actually implement that at scale. And so, yeah, if you go to Bigcheese.AI/workshops or just go to Bigcheese.AI, you'll see the workshops in there. You can see the 3 different types that we offer, apply for it, and we'll do it.
And welcome back to the Bigcheese.AI podcast. I'm Andre Harakas, joined by Sean Hise, Jacob Wise, and Brandon Corbin. And guess what? We are all in the same room. And we've been in the same room for 10 episodes, if you guys have noticed. Guys, we're in the same room. New setup, new year, same crew. All right.
New website.
Bigcheese.AI. Yeah, if you guys haven't checked these things out, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Bigcheese.AI. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. We're posting a bunch of great stuff. Would love for you guys to give us a follow. But today we're diving into bold predictions for 2024. And I think we got some hot ones. 3 coming from each one of the guests. We all get a couple minutes to talk about them, and we got to move on because we'll talk about it for like way too long. I'll go first. My bold prediction for 2024 is that if we look back at 2023, we saw this huge immersion of all these new startups coming out. And everyone's leveraging, like ChatGPT gets mainstream. ChatGPT 4.4 comes out, turbo. People are like, this API is incredible. Every little kind of startup you can starts to come up. But I'm curious, like, are these companies going to make any money? Like, are these just commodity-based companies? Are these companies that are actually going to get a lot of subscribers? How many subscriptions will one person subscribe to for something that you could probably figure out how to do on ChatGPT? So my general prediction is that SaaS companies that were made in the last 5 to 6 years that have already got the B2B penetration adopt AI, and that's what becomes the B2B offerings. I don't think there's a ton of new B2B offerings in terms of AI, in terms of new companies. I think a lot of those are going to be absorbed by existing companies that already have the client base. I think on the B2C side, it's a little bit of a wash. We'll see which one sticks out. My bold prediction is that legacy SaaS companies that have been around for the last few years win big, and the new companies, we'll see how many actually are successful.
Well, we know for sure that big tech's outspending VCs when it comes to AI. We also know just from looking at our website that new AI products are coming out every single day.
And a lot of them suck.
So there is some validity to the question is like how can a niche AI product that serves a single need last especially in a subscription model? Yeah. And in a world where you're getting charged for the tokens that you're using when you're using an API to process all these transactions, it is going to be hard to make money. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a thumbs up on that one a little bit in terms of, from my perspective. I do think a lot of companies will start and end. I think Brandon talks about it a little bit is like, how much is the investment on the product though? Because people are coming up with stuff quick and just seeing what sticks. So maybe it's not something they spent 3 years on, and maybe the risk is a little lower. So.
Right. So I'd be really curious. So I did a review yesterday of petbooth.app. And it's basically a way where you can upload a bunch of your photos for your pet, and it's going to generate some images for it. It was $9.99. I think they're 50% off, so it's $20 basically. You go and they're going to generate you 100 images of your dog. Once I did it though, like there's no reason for me to go back to it. And so I think we're going to see a lot of these, single developers build these tools, say I'm going to charge $20. They might make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 off it, but that long term there's just not that stick, and that people are ultimately going to have to figure out, how do I get my $24 a month from, my OpenAI?
Yeah, everybody's still trying to follow the game plan of like, how do I create a monthly subscription?
Right.
I think you're right. It's going to be the ones that last have some sort of moat, some sort of differentiation, and then also their pricing model actually makes sense. Like I don't need to pay $25 a month to generate pictures of my pets.
Exactly.
Like I can do that one time. I'm good. Maybe once a year for Christmas.
Right. Yeah.
So my first bold prediction, may be controversial, but I predict that this will be the worst year for customer service in the history of the United States of America. Because so many companies are going in and firing all their customer service representatives and replacing it with below average, subpar AI chatbots. And they're trying to build up that capacity to do this work with artificial intelligence, and the models aren't trained right. They don't understand the processes in a lot of cases. So I predict, bold prediction, the worst year for customer service ever.
What's funny, there was an article that was just, can we scroll up on this? I know you guys can't see this, and we'll eventually going to get our monitor to be part of the thing, but there was just another client with a Q, I think, was just launched a couple days ago, and its whole thing is basically a voice-based customer service tool. And you're 100% right. I think this is going to be the most clunky way of customer service this year. So that's a great prediction.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems that they're going to have is like these companies are going to adopt this way too soon before they actually know their processes correctly. The bigger players have data. They know like the flows very well. They can use that to their advantage. They have a lot of throughput. The medium or mid-sized companies, they just don't have it. And they're going to trip over themselves maybe a little bit. So I totally agree.
Yeah. I agree too. Like from a startup's perspective, like that's the one thing you want to be able to say in like an investor meeting or some meeting with someone. Like, yeah, we're actually saving a ton of costs because we're replacing our entire customer service part of our financial model with AI, and we're going to save this much money with like monthly burn. I mean, that's the first thing I would think of. Any
of these tier one support companies that are doing, they're outsourcing their service desk to these companies. They're seeing dollar signs, and they're going to implement this stuff, and they're just going to sacrifice customer experience. They'll get it right. Sure. Yeah. Maybe not this year.
Yeah. That actually brings me to one of my predictions, which is almost the inverse of that, where I think small businesses that adopt AI into their day-to-day practices are going to win, and it's going to be specifically around customer service because they're going to be able to spend more time on customer service because they're freeing up their time to do like documentation and emails and those types of things. So that's where they have their edge to begin with, is that sort of white glove service. The ones that win, I think, in the small business realm are going to be the ones that do embrace it and don't try to automate everything all the time, but use it where appropriate and where it can help them. So
they're automating inside of their business versus automating away their customer interactions, because in a small business, your customer interactions are so important. That's the last thing you would outsource.
Yeah, I mean, I actually completely agree with that. I do think that in a world, and I've said this for a few episodes, right? And it's kind of like my general thought. I think that the human-to-human interaction over time with the evolution of AI and all these software platforms and these different mediums is the number one way to succeed in business. It always kind of has been, but as you move farther and farther away from that human-to-human connection, you're moving farther and far away from, in my opinion, from dollar signs. So yeah, Jacob, I completely agree.
Now, will small businesses adopt AI?
So again, I think AI is just going to be another technology. That's it. It's not going to be some fancy dancy. I mean, databases. When databases came out, all of a sudden, hey, look, we can store databases, we can query databases, we can interact with databases. This AI is just another form of a technology that we can incorporate, that we can leverage, that we can use. Right now, it's all super hot and sexy, and everything's like, oh, all AI all the time.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's just another technical implementation. Implementation. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think more and more will be adopting it just because they don't really have a choice to do it.
Yeah, I think on the small business side that you're typically the small businesses that leverage technology faster. From what I've seen in small businesses, like I've seen companies that are in like a blue collar industry, for example, and they're applying like some traditional white collar growth and operations and sales that just are completely outpacing everyone else. But I think it gives everyone in the small business realm that advantage to excel, to have elite operations, because you can use the power of AI. I mean, I think it can at least help you get there faster.
So I've got 3 predictions. Mine go from obvious to you're crazy. The first one being that AI. So and I know I've been kind of a naysayer that AI is going to be hurting people's jobs and all of that stuff, and I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. The more I've been thinking about it since we've identified that we need to do this predictions thing, is that I think developers are going to be hurt by AI. Only American, United States-based developers. And the reason being is that American, U.S.-based developers need their $150,000.
One makes more money than America.
Exactly. Right? And before, you could always outsource. You could always go to India, you could go to China, you could go to Pakistan, you could go all of these places and get someone for anywhere from $13 to $20 an hour. And they would produce okay work, right? Like it was okay. It wasn't phenomenal.
Okay at its best.
Okay at its best. However, now they've got Copilot. Now all of a sudden, these 1x developers become 5x developers. And they're producing code that is on point with anybody that you would find in America for $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, they're still doing it for their same $13 to $20 an hour, but they're leveraging the tools to make it so they can actually produce code that is better than what we would find.
Twitter, I've seen so Brandon's prediction regarding this AI hurts American developers more than others. So there's a trend on Twitter where snooty, really smart developers just shit on Copilot. And have you seen that?
Yeah.
They're like, I stopped using that. I find that I'm faster without it. And I think that comes from a place of insecurity.
I also think, well, here's the other why I've seen that, and I was like, what are they doing that they don't think this gives them value? And it's probably insecurity for one, but 2 might be that what they're doing is so specific and so technical that maybe it can't help them as much, but they're not in the weeds enough on just the low-hanging fruit code that Copilot really helps accelerate.
Well, let's be honest. There are engineers that call them developers, call them engineers that are in America that are working on some very nuanced stuff, right? And I would say more than other areas, if you will, where you're talking about highly specialized individuals that have been writing code at Facebook, writing code at Google for years. These engineers have a different level of experience, and to that extent, I would agree. But that's not they're not outsourcing those jobs anyways. Right. So the guy that's just riding that coattail for $150,000 a year and writing basic CRUD stuff. Bye.
Well, specifically, one of the examples I saw, which is to that same point, was somebody was like, "Oh, for Laravel, it suggested I do something, but I could have just used middleware and it would have been better." And I was like, "Yeah, but the other solution was okay too. It wasn't the best solution."
Right.
Now, if you put the pretty good solution in the hands of someone who was going to produce like a bad solution before, it just brings them up a little bit more. So like it makes them more valuable. It's like, yeah, of course, this is going to enable those people. I also think we're going to see a shift of American developers to more management and managing the nearshore, because I think there's an absolute gap. Yep. If you're going to have more outsourcing, you need to have people who are proficient in speaking tech and specs and requirements to those new army of developers.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, is there a situation where the average developer in America starts to get paid less?
Yes.
And where do you guys think that lands? I mean,
Do they? If all of a sudden everything that I'm doing, I can only make $40,000 a year doing, I'm not interested in it. So I probably end up leaving it.
My second prediction actually is kind of to challenge that slightly, because I agree with it, but my challenge to that would be that in 2024, developers are going to be asked to do more than ever. And I think that you're basically saying, I'm not going to reduce your pay or increase your pay, but I am going to expect more from you, because what I've seen in the industry and what I've seen from people is non-developers are getting smarter and more technical, and they're able to evaluate developers' work because they've been doing it for years and they're sick of hearing crap. Like, we got sent some interesting findings on a website from one of our clients. They were like, sent us some pretty detailed findings from a Lighthouse report sure, they might not have understood all the technical details of it, but they knew, you know what, we're going to hold these developers' feet to the absolute fire on this, right? We're going to make them commit to the exact promise that they gave for us. And 2 years ago, they wouldn't even known what Lighthouse was, right? And so my point around expecting more from developers and expecting faster and higher velocity is basically where I've instructed our company to be, because I believe that I am expecting that out of my own development team, is we need to be adopting these tools and moving faster so that we can justify the same rate as, we've been paid for years.
I think that the perception of, and now I'm sitting around a group of developers, so don't sit here and attack me, but the perception of the value from a developer has fundamentally changed since the advent of ChatGPT. So before, you had a situation where if I was like, hey, I need a website built, anything past Wix, once I saw code, I'm like, foreign language, I don't understand it. That has to take a lot of brain power, and I'll pay as much money as I need, because I literally couldn't even tell you where to start with a line of code. And that was everybody when it came to everything. And I think that's why there was so much value, and that's why developers, how much we paid developers increased so much, because it's like, well, dude, this is a foreign language. I couldn't even begin to think of it.
Developers made stuff really complicated starting around mid-2010s, right? So, React was advented. You had Node. You had all this new tech stack that came in. Yeah, and we literally talked ourselves. We backed these entire companies into a corner where it became really hard. Now these tools have matured. But also now you have people. The whole thing about non-developers going into ChatGPT and acting like they're going to build entire apps is very enticing, and I think they're going to get pretty far. The question is how far can they get, and how many people are going to be like, hey, I've got this app and it's 75% done. Will you finish it for me? And the guy gets on there and he's like, fuck this.
So that is going to parlay into one of my predictions, my next prediction.
What do you got?
And so this is one of my far out ones, and it's only going to be announced in 2024. It won't be implemented fully. It's going to be a new programming language that will be based on a large language model that will do the compilation. There'll be two parts. There'll be a compilation level, and then there'll be a runtime. And that it will be a more of a natural language writing style where you can just go in and kind of describe what you want, and it's going to be compiled down, and it's going to be able to be compiled into different languages, and there will be both the compile and the run times that will let you do it. A no-code platform and a traditional just, programming language. Think of AppleScript, right? AppleScript did try to be like this natural language, like tell Finder to click this button, but now we can do it with large language models, and it doesn't have to be syntactually perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
pseudocode to code. And I was saying, when you were talking about I agree. Non-coders shouldn't go to ChatGPT and try to write a whole application. There's just too much knowledge gap that it would take you forever. It wouldn't make any sense. Get started, ideate, whatever. But that is what came to mind for me. Was just better building block solutions, or what you said, a natural language interpreter that actually can compile down to code.
Yeah.
And then give it to somebody to take it to the finish line. But I think that's a great prediction.
I say that, and I think that we also underestimate the persistence of human beings and the things that they can create. And I think that there's going to be some, especially the younger generation, that are going to learn this stuff by using ChatGPT.
100%. I was like, I want to build something with Rust. I constantly am like, I'm jealous of Rust developers. I follow them on Twitter.
They're so cool.
I'm like, you guys, the crustacean people.
It's so performant.
So look how fast it is. I use Hyper for my terminal. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to build a Rust application, and I decide I'm going to use Cursor, the new IDE that's based on VS Code, but it's got all the AI stuff kind of built into it. And so I'm like, hey, I want to write this, and it starts doing it, and I start kind of getting it figured out, and then I get an error, and I'm like, hey, tell me about this error, and it's like, oh, well, yeah, you need to use this. So I go and I use this, and then it's like, oh, no, that problem with your version of React, it doesn't work. You need to use this, which was the original problem. And I just got into this infinite loop, and I was never able to figure it out. So we're still far away from it being to a point, because again, I think I'm fairly technical. I think I'm fairly smart when it comes to the code, but I could not get the. All I'm trying to do is resize this browser window.
Are we accidentally going to generate an entire generation of incompetent programmers
Oh yes.
that have no fundamental knowledge whatsoever?
So I think there's gonna be a division, right? And I think you're gonna see that the people who are like the PhD mathematicians, like the people that work at Prompt Privacy, these are like a level of nerds.
I expect you guys to start sending checks.
But you can't even comprehend how nerdy these guys are. But they're writing stuff that's just like I can't do. Again, I'm a builder. I take stuff from smart people. I take some of my designs, I group them together, and I've got a product, right? These guys are writing the super low level, like mathematical stuff.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind. Those people their salaries are going to go up. They're going to be the ones that are making the $950,000 a year at OpenAI, right? And then donkeys like myself who are just gluing together scripts are just going to go from our 150 down to 30. That's my guess.
Yeah. Yeah, no, what I was going to say on that was, abstractions have existed for a long time, right? Every new thing, new language is another abstraction on top of the others. And I do think, like, the old guard is always thinking, well, they're all going to be dumb.
Right.
Well, yes, they're not going to know the fundamentals as good as the one before them, but they'll be able to do more with less and get further down that line. So, so it's going to be more commoditized. These things happen. Programming becomes, if more people can do it, more commoditized. But what are you doing with it? What value are you now driving to that business that's asking you to do the thing? Or what businesses are you creating?
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, the direct correlation I see to the point with, like, are this next generation of developers, like, not going to know anything? Probably not, but it reminds me of this situation where I'm driving in the car with my grandfather, and I'm like, I need to go to X address, wherever the heck we're going. And he's like, oh, that's off this street, and the crossroads of 16th and Meridian, and it's all based off Washington and Michigan. I'm like, oh, what's going on? He's like, you don't know, how do you not know the way the roads are set up?
How
and
the
I'm like,
city was structured.
yeah, how the city was structured. It's like, of course, I have no idea. I type it in my phone. I always have my phone. When would I not have my phone? If I didn't have my phone, then I don't know. You know what I mean? And so it was a situation where he was like, he had a generation that literally knew the entire road structure of Indianapolis, and they thought, well, how the world could someone else not know
North
the road
Street,
structure?
There's East Street, there's
I
West
have
Street,
no
there's South
idea.
Street.
I put it in my Google Maps, but it's like, we didn't need to know it, but the computer did it for us. But like, it's not like we can't drive. But we don't know the directions anymore. And so
But you didn't need to is the point.
You didn't need to. And so I think the situation will be like, it's not that they won't know it. They're not going to need to know it. That's going to be the difference.
So until we have what are they called, where the sun blasts a bunch of particles, and it basically is just going to wipe out our entire electrical grid.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're like, you don't need to worry about how to do math. We've got calculators,
Yeah.
or you don't need to worry about this because we've got this technology. Then all of a sudden we have the great reset that wipes us all back out and we become cavemen again.
Yeah.
That's going to be kind of a problem.
Yeah, that will probably be bad if we all go back to being cavemen. I think we're going to be out our $100,000 jobs for sure.
Prediction goes out to Steve Jobs, and it's in 2024. This is based off my experience, in 2024, skeuomorphic design is going to make a big comeback.
It's starting to pop up.
And here's the reason: skeuomorphic design takes more time, and it requires a skill set from a designer's perspective that doesn't always exist. The reason why things got flat is because no one knew how to do skeuomorphic responsive. Right? They're like, oh, it's mobile. It has to be a green box, right? And it can't have any shape to it. And skeuomorphic design is you design things that appear like other things in the real world. Well, AI is trained on images that are from the real world. So when people are going and getting design inspiration from AI tools that are trained on real world images. And so that's why when we go do a lot of this research on DALL-E and we're saying, hey, give me an inspiring design or in it's all skeuomorphic because it's based off of the real world. The pictures, they're not taking pictures as screenshots of websites. They're thinking about actual real world physical interactive elements. And so I think combination of the way that AI image models are trained and the way that AI is augmenting design, inadequacies or design shortcomings, right, or capabilities that designers don't typically have. I think you're going to see a big resurgence, and I think that's going to increase. I think that's going to create opportunities for you in my business, which is the kind of UI UX design and UI development. I think you're going to see a lot of really cool UIs get built this year.
What's skeuomorphic?
It's skeuomorphic is designing things that look like real world things. So like the first iPhone came out with it had a Books app, right? And the Books app wasn't just a tile of thumbnails. It looked like a bookshelf.
It's UI that's matching the real world. What's kind of it? So we went. I think it was iOS 6 to 7. 7 became the flat, right? Where Johnny Ives came in. He took over because Apple kicked out whoever. I can't remember his name, but he was the guy who was kind of pushing a lot of the skeuomorphic stuff. And then they went completely flat. So it's fascinating, though, because most designers, at least historically, we would copy what Apple did. Apple would come up with a new style. Everybody would steal it and implement it, right? I hadn't really given a whole lot of thought of what happens when an AI who's just giving us generative inspiration is giving us that because of the real world photos that they have because I've constantly been waiting. I'm like, who are we going to steal from now? Right? Because Apple's producing stuff that's pretty much just mid. Like everything that they're producing it's fine. It looks good and great, but it's not like that transformational jump that we used to see where we all of a sudden go from like a 640 by 480, I'm dating myself, to this beautiful design, and they've got drop shadows. They've got this like glossy buttons and stuff. Whereas we're stealing that.
Apple perfected mobile UI. Yeah. With what they did with their design system, and now you're seeing it, and you're seeing it in their modern development platform, Swift UI. Right. That it is unbelievable what you can do with literally just their UI components, and Steve Jobs had the really novel concept of making the UI thread take precedence, so they built this operating system that when you press a button, that frickin' thing presses. Right? And then they coupled it with a design system that had so much research put into it. So it's so hard for them to do anything that isn't just this is the proven best way. But not everything has to be the proven best way. How do you get somebody to click through a screen? Right? Some of the things that we need to do need to be creative and nuanced. And so but when I was in college, everyone was designing in Flash. And there were some really cool experiences that people created with Flash because there was kind of the world was your oyster. You could make a cartoon clickable, right? You could do whatever you wanted.
Frog in the blender.
Yeah, you could just things that were hard were easy then. And then with the advent of mobile phones, everything just kind of got dumbed down. But now I think you're going to see a resurgence because of just the ability for us to like I said earlier, people are going to ask more of us. They want to see some cool stuff. They're like, "Hey, you've got all this time on your hands because ChatGPT is writing all your code. What can you do that was cooler than what you used to do?"
I truly think that in 2024, Google is going to be the one that comes out the victor. And I just think that they have too much data. They have too many smart engineers. It's just too much product, right? Like they're in our emails, our calendars, everything that I think AI is geared to help us with from a productivity perspective to a consumer, they are touching, right? I just think that I have Microsoft stock. I just don't have a ton of faith in their B2C, abilities there. I think Google's going to come out the victor this year.
Would you agree though that Microsoft became the victor this year?
Yeah,
in 2023, Microsoft
the
kicked
fact
everybody's
that
ass.
Was 2023 when they made the commitment to OpenAI.
Yes.
So that happened within that year.
I mean, maybe it was like late 2022, but
The fact people willingly go to Bing.com right now is a huge win.
100%.
Like it
I
wasn't.
installed the Copilot app on my iPhone. Like
Yeah.
I never install Microsoft things.
Yeah.
And now
Microsoft has consistently made really, really good investments on the B2B and enterprise side, right? I mean, buying GitHub was genius. I don't know how much they bought it for, but I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure those guys made a ton of money, but it's that they bought literally all the code, right? And then you're talking about the investment.
Open source code they bought.
I mean, they literally bought it. I'm sure there was some sort of thing that says they own it. And then the OpenAI investment makes a lot of sense. But as long as Google can make Google Drive searchable, then I'm good. I'm good. I'll totally vouch for your prediction.
Just change the UI to be slightly better as well while you're there.
Brandon, what's your next prediction?
A new AI device that's going to come out. So we already know that Sam Altman has hired Johnny Ives, so Apple's former design aficionado, his company Loveform, to generate a new AI device. I think it's going to be a watch. Is my prediction. No, they haven't announced what it's going to be. But so you have Humane AI pin, which is a little pin that you can wear that like you can, and it like displays it on your hand,
Yeah,
like the
what-
UI. You're like beep, 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 and you can like interact with it and take photos. I'm like, well, my fucking watch does that too. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't need to have like a little pin on my chest. I can just use it on my watch. So what Tan Tang, I think is his name. He was a former VP of design for iPhone and Apple, or an iWatch. Johnny Ives just plucked him from Apple, and he's now at Loveform. So my guess is it's going to be a watch interface that will be OpenAI powered, that will let you basically do everything that you can kind of do on a new phone.
Yeah.
I don't think it will be a phone. I'm sorry, on a watch, but I don't think it will be a phone. I think it will be a watch.
My final prediction is that so Builder.io is a product we use, and they take text to code, and they do just a pretty good job of it, But they have a whole article on how they have a whole chain of models that input comes in, and then it takes these 10 or 20 steps to get you that output. I think 2024 is going to be the year of the multimodal, so lots of different ways of getting input into it, images, text, all that. But we're going to have this explosion of very purpose-driven products that are way more specific, but they're going to get way better because there's so many different actions that are going on behind the scenes. So hitting an API and getting some content, doing, so all the things that are required to do more nuanced work, we're going to start to see some of those products emerge in 2024.
Yeah, Builder.io is an interesting product because, like you said, it there's so much to it. Like, it's an example of a product that I would say is almost mind-boggling how much there is to it.
But you're in the Builder.io UI, right? You're in that interface and you're doing whatever. Why is it not in VS Code? Why is it not in your development tools that you're already using?
We've been using it starting in Figma.
And
so
you go from Figma to
from-
Builder,
Yeah.
and then it generates, and then you take that into
I haven't gone down that path, but there's pieces that, it's not just sitting. It's definitely got its hooks into different places. They call that I guess that product in general is just one of those things where you open it up and you're like, this looks like it would have taken years to build, and it didn't. It took less than a year to build, right? And it's by one of those 10x developers on Twitter that literally was an influencer, made a bunch of videos on how to write awesome React code, and next thing you know, he's an AI engineer building AI products. Yeah. So to Jacob's point, I kind of agree. I think that there's definitely going to be like some super products that come out for niche reasons. I think you'll probably see it in music, code. You'll see it in video. There's probably going to be you're probably going to see some of these micro products that evolve into major software releases that have kind of a transformational impact on whatever industry they're built for.
Pika. I think Pika is going to be like, if I was a betting man, I would lean into Pika being kind of that next evolution. Right now, they're only generating, what is it, 8-second videos or whatever. Yeah, but if you go to Bigcheese.AI, you'll see that our hero image is a bunch of big ass cheeses flying through space. And I literally just went to Pika and it was like, just give me 3D, cheeses flying through space, and it generated that image. We'll get to a point by the end of the year, I bet, that you'll be able to produce, 30-minute videos.
Well, did you see Lego's commercial? No. They we'll have to share that in the show notes, but they produced a commercial using AI. I forget what tools.
Really?
They probably a handful of tools.
Was it as twisted as like the pizza commercials where people were like, whoa?
I thought it was great.
Okay.
It was
All
great. And so we'll share that. But I totally agree. Like, those products are gonna get way better. And the other reason I think that the smaller chain, less large language models is gonna be key is because cost.
Yeah.
For me to use OpenAI for a handful of tasks a day is very cheap, but to use that in a product for millions and millions and millions of requests is not only slow, but it's super expensive. Right. It may be a magical bullet that can do a lot of things very well, but yeah, it's slow and expensive. So
I would say my last prediction for 2024 is that we hit 1,000 subscribers. And we've got our first sponsor by the end of the year.
Sponsor?
Yeah, first sponsor. If
Pay
you
up,
haven't-
Prompt.
We're Prompt Privacy is a fantastic platform. You guys should all
We're
go
sitting
use
at
it.
157 subscribers.
We have
today.
157 subscribers.
That's another one that I'm leaning into. Is Vectera, by the way. So if you're looking for an interesting search solution, Vectera, Vectara.
Section on our websites, that's the industry AI leader for each industry, and we link to their product. Like the video industry leader, Pika, the audio, Sono, or whatever.
I love that. I was just overwhelmed the other day. You should do that. You might have a promising career in that one day. I was just looking at our weekly, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And I get shiny ponies. I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." I'm like, "Good God, how many things can I look at every day?" But I like that idea.
Yeah. Also, we do have a really cool offer for our listeners that check out the podcast. The weekly Big Cheese kind of evolved into this idea of the webinar of.
It's called a workshop, you
the
fucking Gen Z
goddamn
prick.
workshop. We want to work with you on a shop. We are introducing this new thing called Big Cheese Workshops. I'll let Brandon dive a little bit deeper into it, but these things are completely free and can add a ton of value to any organization, startup, mid-sized, large company. Brandon, why don't you dive a little more into it, because this is actually a really cool opportunity.
So basically, the whole angle here is that our mission here is to really democratize AI, to get more companies leveraging it, realizing that it's not something to be afraid of, and that if you have a product, whether you want to launch a new AI product or you have an AI product that you want to go to market with, that we have 3 different workshops that we're offering for free. You do have to apply, just because we don't have all the time in the world to be able to do constantly free workshops. But that basically we will help you if you're an AI product that you need to launch and want to go to market. We'll help you kind of lay out your high-level go-to-market strategy. If you're a company that wants to incorporate AI into your business, then we can help you kind of think through what does that actually look like. We can do some real proof of concepts where you can come out of that saying, okay, yeah, we know we can actually do this idea. So an example is one that we're working with right now, which is, we won't get into the detail, but they're basically being able to take recorded conversations and score them against a bunch of rules. So, for example, if you were a lawyer and you wanted to interview one of your customers, you could say, okay, here's the recording. How well did I do? And then give us feedback. So we go through and we come up with like the actual proofs of concept that we prove out that can you actually do this with AI or not? And then if you do, then we can actually implement that at scale. And so, yeah, if you go to Bigcheese.AI/workshops or just go to Bigcheese.ai, you'll see the workshops in there. You can see the 3 different types that we offer, apply for it, and we'll do it.
Everybody, this is the Big Cheese AI podcast. I'm Andre Harakas, joined by Sean Hise, Jacob Wise, and Brandon Corbin. See you guys next week, and let's see what happens this year.